Everyone, we'd like to welcome you to a Local 100 Fightback Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram live stream event. We're coming to you tonight following up on previous discussions about recent events in our union. Um, Shamefully, in TW Local 100, the president of the union was forced to resign in disgrace over credible accusations of sexist abuse, predatory assault of female union employees and members of our union. Um, and, a lot of now the union is in damage control, and they're basically saying, John Samuelson is saying, that if you're asking any questions about how this happened or about calling for new elections or calling for any kind of investigation about the role that Samuelson, the international, and other local 100 leaders like the newly appointed president, John Chiarello, may have played over many decades, then you're anti-union. And that what you should be doing is supporting your union leadership right now. Supporting a union leadership that lied to us repeatedly and engaged in a toxic work environment that hid sexist predators and harassers of women on union payroll for decades. We should just trust them, and we should be good union soldiers and just go to sleep again, be quiet. There's nothing to see here. And just like in the world we live in terms of Trump and in terms of a rising fascist movement, the rise of the attacks on women, gays, and lesbians, people of color, immigrants, we cannot be silenced. Our class created these unions. It is our institution. It is our union dues money that they're giving $500,000 to reward this predator bastard who disgraced the name of Local 100. And they want us to be silent. And they want us to go back to sleep. And that simply cannot happen. If this union is going to survive, if there's going to be a future for our class, if there's going to be a future for our institutions, that can never happen. And that's why we are supporting, and profusely so, supporting the rally called by Evangeline Byers this Wednesday, both the AM and the PM hours, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Union Hall, 195 Montague Street in Brooklyn. The largest possible turnout of our members to have their voices heard and to say that this is not normal, this is not okay, and this is a disgrace to the memory of Mike Quill. He would be rolling in his grave if he's seen the sad and disgraceful state of this union. This cannot continue. This must all end now. Seth, I wanted to give you a chance to follow up on framing the discussion. And, everyone's going to get a chance to speak. We're probably only going to be on for about 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes, because we want to try to keep it a very tight live stream event and not let it drag on too long. We also look forward to your comments. If you want to call in, please text me at 917-678-0557. We're more than welcome to hear from members on this live stream. So, Seth, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. The first thing I think a lot of members know, they were shocked by the allegations or shocked by Richie Davis's removal. This is a massive blow to Local 100, to our reputation and to the morale within the union, that you have someone like Richie Davis who, multiple accusations of sexual impropriety and also threats of violence and actual, accusations of violence against another Local 100 member and someone he was involved with at the time. It's devastating when, with respect to trying to be an organization that is a solidarity organization, to have a leader who undermines all of our messages by doing so, and can looks like can at will terrorize employees of the union, women, people he's involved with. It's just disgusting, and it's incredibly damaging. And but there's different ways that it can be handled, right? I think members are rightly outraged, and one this all to come to the surface. Davis should be punished in the strongest possible terms, both by the union and by the law. But that's not what the international or the remnants of Local 100 leadership want to do. They want to sweep this under the rug and make it go away. That's why they're giving him, what is it, 100 weeks of severance. That which members didn't get to vote on. That's our dues money going to do that. So it's really important to talk about the fact that there are different ways that this can go. And that's why, just to reiterate what John said, it's so important to support, even though we have differences with Evangeline Byers in a lot of different ways, that she's called for a protest at the Union Hall. And that's members. The only way that we can clear house and actually get accountability and try to right this union is by members exerting their democratic power. And when you have a crisis of this depth, where you have the president assaulting other transit workers, when you have a president who's threatening to kill a union employee and her family, and sexual impropriety, this crisis is at a level that we can't expect the normal procedures to actually take care of this. And that's why members need to take control, why we need to have a vote for a new president. And let me just say a little bit more about that, why it's so important is because, some of these revelations were new. Maybe the international kept them under wraps until after the election, which is something we're going to have to talk about. But one thing we know for 100% certain is that John Chiarello and the other top leaders on the slate that ran with members first, whatever they call it, members last, all knew who Richie Davis was, right? There was the lawsuit filed by a bus driver, right, who was involved with Richie Davis. The lawsuit is that he assaulted, that first of all, there was, that he assaulted her multiple times, violence.
In public.
In public, right? And so John Chiarello knew about this. I actually confronted Richie Davis and Chiarello and Canelo Gomez about this at Stillwell when they came there. I handed out newspaper articles about this. And John Chiarello came up to me and said, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. That you went too far with that. That's personal." And we see it's not, right? It undermines the union when you have a scumbag, criminal, right, festering pile of crap like Richie Davis. And what that means is John Chiarello and the other people who ran with them all knew about this, and they all supported him anyway, which means they support that type of violence and sexual violence against Local 100 members and against women. They are all complicit. And the idea that John Chiarello should just be handed control of this union when he was a part of that, right, is a crime against this union. He should be thrown out of office and never be in union office again. All of them knew about this, right? And it tells you what their judgment is, that they, when confronted with this, they said that the people who brought that up were the problem, not that Richie Davis was the problem, right? And that's why the members have to take control now, is because John Chiarello, the other top four, the VPs who all ran with, right, are all part of the problem. They're all corrupt. They all condone Richie Davis's actions, right? And they cannot be allowed to stay in union office, right? And that's why they just want to sweep it under the rug, give him a cash payment with our dues money, right? But that's not what justice is. That's not what justice for Richie Davis's victims are. What needs to be done is he needs to be brought up on union charges. His union pension and all of his union benefits need to be taken away, right? In addition to the criminal charges against him. That is justice for the people that he terrorized and assaulted. And so that's why it's so important for members to get involved and to support this rally and to come out this coming Wednesday in the morning, right? What was it? 9 to 11, you said? And also
9 a.m. to 11 in the morning and 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yes, right. So
195 Montague Street.
Yeah. So we can't allow business as usual to go on with that. All of Members First leadership, anyone who ran with him, right, especially at the top levels, because they knew about who Richie Davis was, are complicit. The next thing is for, Local 100 is centered in RTO, and we know that RTO is the division that did not vote for Richie Davis, and we should be very proud of that. We should be extremely proud that we did not, right? All the other, right, MOW buses, they all voted for a scumbag like this, even though that these stories were out there, right? But RTO has a proud history of being a dissonant division, and we did not vote for it. And our union leaders who were put into office as oppositionists should be standing against sweeping this under a rug, standing against the smooth transfer of power to complicit Chiarello and his other cronies, right? So that's, we have been trying to gather facts. The union says that the vote to put Chiarello in as interim president was unanimous. If that's the case, then we must criticize RTO VP Tremel Thompson for going with that. I've gotten mixed stories about whether he voted for it or not, but if he did vote for it, then that was a significant mistake, right? And RTO members should be criticizing him for it, right? And Tremel should, and the chair of train operators and chair of conductors, Chris Drummond, should all be organizing, using, right, their influence to get people to come out to protest, right? Because they didn't run with Chiarello, and rightly so that they didn't. And they were voted in as to stand against this corruption. And they're in an excellent position now to actually stand up and say, we told you so. We didn't run with these scumbags, because they support these kind of things, right? They support these kind of attacks, this type of sexism against women, violence against women, violence against union members, right? And so they should be using their influence and all the bullhorns that they have to get people to come out. They should be making, just like we are right now, drawing a line in the sand that the damage this has done to our union, and the damage that will be continued to be done if we let complicit scumbags like Chiarello stay in office, right? And just come in and just be like, oh, well, Davis was the problem. He wasn't just the problem. The whole culture that Davis was a part of, Utano was a part of, Samuelson was a part of, right? And John can speak more on how that culture has existed in Local 100 under Samuelson, under Utano, that they've hid people who are sexual, doing sexually aggressive, sexually impropriety in the workplace. They kept them on the payroll of the union, right? Yeah. That this is not just about Davis. They want to make it just about one person and get him out and, hey, everything's great now. That's a lie, right? And the membership has to stand up and say, that is not the case, and we won't accept that. And so our position, we stand with Evangeline on this. There needs to be a new election to elect the president, and there need to be union charges against Richie Davis. No backdoor deal to keep him quiet, right, and to let him go quietly. The full bore of union justice needs to be brought against Richie Davis, and whatever that exposes with Chiarello and Utano and Samuelson and all these cronies, all need to go down.
Seth, before we go to another coalition member, I wanted to put some of the member comments up on the screen. Celso Garcia has been commenting in the YouTube chat. He said they went mute. We haven't heard anything since Chiarello was appointed for the rest of the term. Then he said that they all knew and kept quiet just to stay in power. She also claimed retaliation and a history of retaliation on the job for anyone that complained. The allegations match in the lawsuit and the report. And he said that the culture has not changed. It still exists. It's just covered over. And just in terms of Tremel and progressive action and the role they need to play in fighting to uproot this culture of corruption that they all ran on the platform of being against. One of the main reasons why Tremel Thompson is the vice president of RTO, and Chris Drummond and others, why they were able to get elected against tremendous odds as independent candidates, is their platform. Their platform is an effective tool for organizing. It is evidenced by their election to office. One of the main reasons that they could get their message out there was the Progressive Action platform. I don't want to hear that you're just showing up at the rally. Of course, that's better than the nothing that's coming and the silence that's coming from other leaders. But that doesn't change the fact that you have power. And you have a very real ability to mobilize people and to get people to pay attention and understand why it is necessary for every member who can make it to be at the Union Hall in the largest numbers possible. Just showing up at the rally, I'm sorry, it's not enough, because Chamel and Progressive Action have raised the bar, quite frankly. You're victim of your own success to a certain extent. The fact that they are able to communicate in a way and mobilize members, they have to be part of that. Sorry. Any further members want to speak at this point?
Yeah, I'll go.
Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's I know a lot of people see, the severance pay that Richie's is being allowed to get is hush money, and I think it's important to note. I don't know if there's any kind of precedent for this. There's certainly nothing in the bylaws about giving a buyout to somebody like this, and certainly no one would say they would be justified in simply paying out only what was legally necessary: vacation time, sick time, whatever he had accrued, which is definitely way less than 100 weeks. But like, how is this done? Because I don't believe the e-board is met yet, because Chiarella was appointed by the executive committee, which is the VPs and the top four, or the remaining top three. And that was an interim until the e-board meets, which still has not happened this month. So who is approving this? Because this is completely, I believe, but
the
this
executive committee, obviously.
Yeah, this feels unprecedented, and if there's nothing in the bylaws for it, then there's nothing in the bylaws that says we can't undo this, or similar. I mean, and I'm very much a rules guy, and I understand the rules say the e-board has to appoint the replacement, but in the same vein, this feels like they knew this was a potential result. And they ran a president they were prepared to remove from office very quickly, and it does feel like the election was, I don't want to say rigged, but it was run dishonestly, and we would all be best served by running another one. Yeah, and it is bullshit that if they really do feel that Chiarello can't be elected, and that the reason they ran Davis instead was because they could always run Chiarello through a back door, then he shouldn't be president if you think he can't get fucking elected.
Yeah.
Exactly. If he's that toxic a candidate, he's going to get voted out in a couple of years anyway. Give us the fucking chance to actually run an election with a candidate who would serve out a whole term, instead of just more of this fucking bullshit where it's so-and-so is stepping down, is no longer going to be president, and his friends on the e-board are going to pick the next person who we already knew was going to be succeed them anyway.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that the idea that you're being anti-union by saying that after it is exposed that the single highest elected leader in the union engaged in abuse of power on a scale that was criminal, and that they all had to know at least some of the details of since May of last year, and you're going to provide the membership no democratic right to be heard. Secondly, how can you go forward with a leadership that's weak, that has not been elected to the highest local wide office, to go into negotiation with management mortally wounded in the way they are in terms of credibility? How could they have any legitimacy at all, just on the pragmatic basis?
Yeah.
How could we possibly go forward as a union given a leadership that's crippled?
And this also lends credence to a persistent rumor that Davis was told to deliver the last contract, and MTA would slow walk the results of their own investigation to him until after it was done, because it was pretty damning of him.
Yeah.
And that's how you give up traditional Medicare.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, John, I just want to say that, it's like, we hear from people like, pathetic people like Eric Logel, like the most hated man in RTO, who has to be hidden in the union hall for years. We hear, all these cries are from Union 2 Squad about, oh, you're anti-union, you're anti. It's just what they mean is that, right, is that they equate the union with union corruption, right, and union sellouts and union bureaucracy. They're so entrenched in that's the only type of union that they can think of. Right, an actual union that actually fights for its members, that doesn't give up traditional Medicare, right, that doesn't, give up that doesn't give up a 5-year wage progression, all that stuff, that doesn't get below inflation increases. They can't even conceive of that. So to them, it's like if you criticize the union and you criticize someone who's basically a rapist, assaulter of transit workers, right then you're anti-union. It's just we can't even listen to jokes like that.
Well, the other thing though too is that they want to blame the members for the weakness of the union. There's nobody more responsible for the weakness of this union than Samuelson and the entire regime that's connected to him. They went around shouting from the rooftops that they'd never strike. They allowed, through their own weakness, thousands of bus operators and station agents to be laid off. They have agreed to concession after concession to screw new hires. Now they're fucking retiree health care. They've screwed all of us with below inflation non-wage increases for decades now. If you want to know why people think Local 100 is weak, look at who they're across the bargaining table from, a clown car of corruption. And they want us to go into the next round of negotiations, and we're going to save the union by supporting the bureaucracy that got us here in the first place. No, they don't have any credibility to be able to say they have a democratic right to maintain leadership in Local 100. They engaged in an election when they knew from May he was charged with credible accusations. Whether or not they believe those accusations were true or not, they knew about those accusations, yet they still ran him and said he was the best person to lead the local. And, it doesn't matter what the election results were. There was mass voter suppression in this election. And on top of all of the voter suppression that's been going on year after year after year, and the people who don't get ballots, we're just supposed to accept and swallow the idea that we have no democratic rights? No. That has to end right now. That has to end right now, because there is no future for Local 100. There's no future for our class unless we begin to seize control of our own institutions. This is our fucking money. This is our union, and we have a right to have a union to be proud of. A right to have a union that stands with our class, that doesn't tuck its tail between its leg and grovel before the bosses. They're a fucking disgrace. Don't talk to me about democracy ever. These people can't talk to us about democracy ever, because they override it all the time. Tom, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I would. So unions are first and foremost self-defense organizations against the continuous assaults and again that come at us from our employers. And to have an organization be a place that is as unsafe for its members, where women cannot feel that they can participate without becoming put in the crosshairs of some sexual predator and stalked and harassed and assaulted with no recourse. Where if they, much like you hear in outside of the union movement, women are reluctant to come forward because they're going to be essentially blamed as the cause for their own victimization, and that is unacceptable. We are supposed to be at the vanguard of showing workers what a democratically run organization looks like. And in the current environment, where the very existence of unions is in question, it's on the table. We have forces at work that are trying to deliver a death blow to the working class by getting rid of labor unions. And that is not Chicken Little crying that the sky is falling. It's the reality. And we don't have youth leadership that is coming to the youth members and pointing this out and saying, okay, it's not business as usual. We are in a new environment, and we are approaching, literally, not exaggeration, life and death struggles. But instead we have these gangsters who treat our union like their own personal little fiefdom, where they are the king, the lord of the manor. They can pilfer, they can rape, they can assault, they can silence people through thuggery, through violence and intimidation. This is completely unacceptable. And this is why we are in such a weak condition. We have so many lessons from history of what happens when you don't do a thorough cleaning out, when the failure of the North to deal with the South. This is what we're dealing with today. The long history of what happened with the defeat of the Reconstruction, with the legacy of all of that, and the anger, the animosity that came out of those people, the descendants of that, with the passage of the Civil Rights Act, and that they've never cleaned house. There's never been a reckoning with that. If we don't do something dramatic, as has been pointed out, that this is new, forget about the bylaws and what. This is something that needs to be dealt with in a way that sends an absolute clear message, first and foremost, to all the female members of this union, that we take this shit seriously. And this is a direct result why so many of them look at the union like just another old boys club where it's business as usual. Women are here as playthings. If you pick one out that you like, you got the right to fucking stalk her and treat her like an object. We can't accept this. This is it weakens the union. It's bad for our union sisters. It's bad. There's no defending it whatsoever. And the slap in the face is that their union dues are going to help enrich and soften the fucking transition for this predator to lose his have to sign, but the sting is going to be taken out because he's going to get 100 weeks of severance and he gets to keep his union pension and all the other benefits.
And healthcare too.
Yeah, and healthcare
sick, right?
too. Yeah,
he's really sick. We'll vouch for that. But fuck him and his healthcare.
Yeah, it's like when cops get busted for using extreme violence in an arrest, and then go out on a full disability pension because they were traumatized by having their name put in the paper as a murderous pig. So yeah, I mean, we're supposed to be offering the working class something different. We have to be an example, and we can't be. This is just, it's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
Also, Tom, the other question is, we're going to pay the lawsuits. Who's going to pay for that? Our members are going to pay for that. We didn't rape anybody. We didn't engage in sexual harassment on the job.
Right.
I just want to put up some comments. I'm going to get to other coalition members because the chat has been pretty busy on YouTube. So Cecil Garcia was talking about workers' compensation privatized, FMLA privatized, retiring medical privatized, all types of side deals and givebacks. All the deals Davis did should be reviewed. Also, how much did the MTA know? Then he also points out a very important point that Local 100 and TWU are pushing right now former Congressman Molinaro, an outright fascist, insurrectionist piece of shit, to be the Federal Transportation Administrator. He's a right-wing ultra MAGA supporter. So, I mean, there's a very real connection between their corruption and the collapse of any kind of self-defense in the face of MAGA and Trump and what they have planned for the working class. It's a very dangerous time. Jonathan, did you want to get in here?
Yeah, I wanted to remind RTO members, remind everyone another reminder of when the rally is, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Wednesday and 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. For RTO members, that is around the time when we have our division meetings. So our division meeting is 10 a.m. and then there's another one that day at 6 p.m. So for those of us that are members of Local 100 and are eligible to attend the RTO division meeting, we ought to excuse ourselves after about an hour and go upstairs and hold our elected officials in the union accountable if it was unanimous. So first of all, I would like to ask Vice President Thompson and the other RTO executive board members, first of all, if that was true. I mean, they could be lying that it was unanimous. And why did they choose to go along to get along and vote for Tom Chiarello? What was their reasoning behind it besides everyone else was voting for him anyway, we might as well vote him in. And it is especially heinous to be brother Celso Garcia was saying that the union is mute on this. Unfortunately, that is absolutely correct. I haven't heard anything from our president. Where is our new Local 100 president Tom Chiarello, the least he
John.
could do,
John.
John Chiarello.
John Chiarello,
It's actually pronounced Chauffeurello, by the way, just so you know, because he was Tony's
if
driver.
if if you're going to do this whole cover behind covering performance of of putting Richie Davis on leave and firing him, the least the newly appointed president could do is put out a statement condemning just a general condemnation of violence against women and harassment against women in general, and then saying saying that this is still under investigation, and we'll see what the investigation finds, but at least put out some statement condemning sexual harassment, sexual assault against our members. Our Vice President, Brother Thompson, was on his Progressive Action channel recently with a sister who told a story of uh, her her sexual assault in the medical assessment center from her so-called doctors. That they she was how they were checking her chest. She had a male doctor, and she was checking her chest when her chest didn't need to be checked.
Yeah.
So if how are we going to fight against these accusations? How are we going to fight the MTA on this when we have union officials on our side who are doing the same thing to our members?
Yeah.
Good
Well,
point.
the other question, the good point, Jonathan. The other question is, the one statement they did put out was from Samuelson, expecting us to believe that he only found out about these accusations on January 16th of 2025. If you believe that, I got about 9 bridges that circle Manhattan to sell you, because that is fucking bullshit. That is a lie. Pinocchio would be impressed with this level of lying. Um, John Samuelson knew as of May 1st, when these allegations were first made, he was fucking arrested. The president of the union was arrested for violent crimes. He has a court date in the middle of February. You mean to tell me the international president didn't know anything about one of his local presidents that represents 40% of the international, that he was arrested for violent crimes? Get the fuck out of
Hey,
here.
we should organize a show up at a court and say make this perpetrator suffer the consequences like they do when one of us get hurt by an outsider. We should ask the judge to throw the book at this scumbag, throw his
Yeah.
ass in jail.
Seth, I see you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to make a couple of connections. I mean, I know that when I confronted uh, Davis at Stillwell and about this and about Medicare Advantage, one of the things that he came after me for is that, I'm a well-known socialist, communist. And he was very proud of his patriotic, credentials and talking about America being the best country on earth, blah, blah, blah. And I think we've had some evidence that he's a Trump supporter. And just to make that large connection, right, we have to remember that the president of the United States right now, right, was found culpable for rape and sexual assault, right, and has not faced any jail time for it because he's a billionaire. And so it's not a coincidence that Richie Davis is the type of right-wing scumbag who pounds his chest about patriotism and stuff like that, but assaults women and transit workers. And then the other piece being, if the international and the union leadership want to say that they're serious, right? That isn't just about violence against women, right? We had Canela Gomez running for RTO VP who broke the leg of a
Right.
conductor on duty, Tremel Thompson, right? And he's now being paid with our union money. He's director of communications, right?
Yeah, because he
So now,
communicates so well, Seth.
right. So now he's the second most hated man in person in RTO, right after Eric Logel. The union is now running a witness protection program for ex RTO VPs who are jokes, right?
It's a
And
job
so they,
program for sociopaths. Yeah, I mean,
right. So then you have Eric Logel, who had a long history of menacing, right, being extremely threatening at union meetings and around to other union members and also other MTA employees, right? Well documented. So that it's fostering this culture of violence, right, within the Samuelson, Utano, Davis leadership, where it's okay to commit violence against transit workers, whether it's a woman or whether it's a political opponent or something like that, right? And so if they want to be serious about rooting out this violence, then no one like that, right, should be on our union payroll. Canelo Gomez should go back to his tools. Eric Logel should go back to his tools. And because they're being paid with union money, and it's condoning the type of atmosphere and violence that they've created within Local 100. And it's just showing that it's just business as usual. They want to just make Davis, who is a scumbag, right, and who should pay the price in every possible way for that. He should be he should face his criminal charges. He should face union charges, get his pension removed, healthcare removed, any sort of backdoor severance package removed. But it's not just him, right? And just think about it. Chiarello was on Richie Davis, right, who we know now is extremely dangerous, was running for president. Canelo Gomez, we know, was extremely dangerous, running for RTO VP. So what is this member's first slate in leadership all about? They all need to go, right? The barrel is completely rotten.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing too about the rottenness and corruption down here, like if you read the stories about what Richie Davis was doing, putting his sexual partners on the payroll at Local 100 and engaging in all sorts of cronyism and corruption to have a free hand to decide who works at the union hall, who works in communications or member services or whatever it is. That free hand is mirroring exactly what management does. I mean, Trammell has rightfully exposed the way in which management uses these jobs as sexual favors, as ways to extract sexual favors. He's also exposed that MTA supervisors were using sexual favors in exchange for guaranteed overtime. And it's gone on with reckless abandon throughout the MTA. And it happens down at 2 Broadway, at 130, and all of those jobs. There's massive violations of civil service. The TA is a civil service employer. There's supposed to be tests for those jobs. There are not. And at the same time, they swear up and down there are no light duty assignments for our members when they get assaulted, when they get injured on the job, when they have illnesses, when they get older and they're not able to perform in their given title. They'll say, no work available. There's no jobs we could give them. But at the same time, they're giving their sexual partners, their girlfriends, their wives, these perks. And Trammell rightly attempts to expose them at every point. Well, we need to expose the corruption that's going on in the Union Hall. This is a disgrace on the name of Local 100. It has to stop. It has to stop. We cannot continue to conduct ourselves as a mirror image of our scumbag bosses who don't care if we live or die. And as far as I can see, they are worse than management. I have not heard of any manager saying that he would kill an employee and kill their children and their family. I've never heard of that from an employer at Local One at the MTA. It's possible it could happen. If that's the case, we'd be more than willing to see those people thrown in jail and lose their job and lose their pension and their health insurance and be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But how can we sit back and say everything is normal and we have to follow the bylaws that were written 30, 40 years ago, mostly by white men, and we're just going to say, well, we got to follow the bylaws. Nothing to see here. There's nothing we can do. No, we have to pull the emergency cord on this fucking runaway train known as Local 100 and the International, who's even worse because John Samuelson was Local 100 president. He knows goddamn well that they were hiding a witness protection program for people like Aiken and others who were credibly accused sexist abusers of women, even sexist abusers who attack managers. and he still hid them on the payroll. He's a disgrace. Don't let him posture like the fucking blowhard he is about how much he cares about women's rights. Where the fuck was he when Roe v. Wade was overturned? You haven't heard a peep out of his ass since Trump's appointed Supreme Court justices gutted and rolled back a major human right, a major right to control your own body. And they said nothing. They're a fucking disgrace. Further speakers, because we got to try to wrap this up. We're about 40 minutes in.
Yeah. Any other organization where not even the president, but any major executive was accused of what Richie Davis was accused of, would have hired also an outside firm to do an autopsy just to make sure this wasn't a one-off, that other people weren't enabling him, weren't aware of this and sat on it because they were either afraid of upsetting the president or wanted to help out their friend by staying silent. There's been no sign of any of that happening. The report just says Richie Davis did these things. We are terminating him because he did the bad thing, and they're implicitly saying, now please applaud us for having stood up to this one bad person.
Exactly. Pat us on the back.
Yeah, and there's been no indication that there's going to be any kind of investigation as to how did he get away with this for so long. Why were so many people comfortable with the president cheating on his wife with members who were clearly people who were he was superior to, and threatening to he's not doing this for the first time. He's not threatening putting his girlfriends on the payroll. He's not using his job their job as leverage to extort favors from them. This wasn't the first time he did this, and I'm sure a lot of people knew about it because there are stories about him for a while. And I've only got 9 years in this union. I've heard about what a piece of shit he is. But if Samuelson was really interested in standing up for his members and proving that he had any goddamn commitment to women, he would investigate more, the rest of the union and everyone, and there'd be a whole lot of people packing their offices up down at 195.
Yeah,
which is why they won't be, because they're his friends.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it also makes sense of why the union is so silent about what management's doing with their girlfriends and their sexual favors, and why they don't want to uproot that nest of corruption. So, I mean, it's just on a survival level. Like, we can't allow that to continue. We can't allow this to continue on either side of the battle of barricades. But we have to clean up our own house first. We can't, in good conscience, appeal to other workers and say we take the fight against sexism, the fight against exploitation on the job, the fight against abusive supervisors. We can't be taken seriously by anyone. That we are serious about those questions and that we are going to put all of our resources to actually fight to put an end to this. If we don't take action against our own, if there aren't consequences for them. I mean, I was involved with, you want to talk about morale in the union and changing morale. One of the best things I've ever been involved in to change morale in this union is to watch a sexist, abusive supervisor pack up his shit and get the fuck out of my work location because he used to put his finger in the face of female employees in front of the writing public. He used to harass them. It's the females. They're hormonal. All of this kind of shit. And I organized a campaign where I picked in platforms, Grand Central platform, to watch him, to sit on him, to document everything that he did. So much so that the Barry Greenblatt had to be called down there, Chief Transportation Officer, to have a meeting with members. And we had stacks and stacks of documentation. And it didn't take long for him to hang himself. Imagine the morale of our union if we seen those who think they're immune be punished. Well, I know it was tremendously inspiring for my coworkers to see the person who harassed them and stalked them every day, telling them they weren't working hard and it's because they're a woman, get his ass packed up and kicked the fuck out of our work location. There's nothing better to increase the morale of this union or to get members to buy into a union and believe in it and fight for it than to clean house. And we have to clean our own house before we can start to be taken with any seriousness and credibility about leading the struggle of our class. That's what a union is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a class self-defense organization.
Right.
How can we organize anything unless we clean house in our own union?
Mhm.
Further speakers.
Why don't we wrap it up there? I think that's a good.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
bet. I think that's a good.
I always appreciate when I get the last word. I'm just kidding. At least that's what's said of me in many places. But in any case, the discussion doesn't just end with the live stream. We thank some people so much for their comments. Please keep them coming. I'm sorry if I didn't get to any of them. I'm not sorry I didn't get to the union workers for Trump comments because
Yeah.
obviously that's like chickens for KFC.
Right.
I don't see
Yeah,
that
exactly.
as a serious comment, so I'm not going to respond to it. But we thank you for all the other comments, and please keep the comments coming. Please meet us down at the Union Hall. Seth will be there on the AMs. I'll be there on the PMs, and others will join us when
Yeah.
they can.
PMs. Yeah.
Ray will be there on the PMs.
Yeah,
It's
be on
not
the
about
PMs.
and once again, this is not about personality. It's not about Richie Davis's depraved personality, and it's certainly not about Evangeline's personality or my personality or anybody involved. Don't let the union leadership make this about her. This is about us and our right to be heard. We need the largest turnout possible. Put aside any differences you have towards any individual person. This is too important. Seth, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just once again, just to repeat, right? This Wednesday at the Union Hall, 195 Montague, from 9 to 11 a.m. and from 4 to 6 p.m.
4 to 6 p.m. Yeah.
Right, and also just point out, get involved, go to your union meetings, raise a motion to condemn Davis to take away his benefits. Right, we got to remember that according to our bylaws and constitution, the most powerful democratic deciding bodies of the union are the members themselves, either at a mass membership meeting, right? So we could put forth a motion for that under this emergency circumstances to make decisions, or we could pass motions at a majority of the division meeting is also a way to enforce policy. So we should start talking about this. And this rally is an important first step, but we can't just leave it there. We have to figure out ways to actually change the policy and to make decisions that are binding for this union.
Yeah. And also, if you haven't, please sign the petition that's going around the concerned members of Local 100 calling for a new election and calling for real reform and uprooting corruption in the union. It's a good organizing tool. Even if we didn't organize it, we still support 100% steps in the right direction, steps to organize. Any next step is a good next step. Passivity is a recipe for suicide for our unions. It's a recipe for suicide for our class. And we have too much invested in building a real future for the working class. And we can't do that without the institutions of our class. It is not theirs. It is ours. And we will rip it away from them if necessary to organize the struggle to defend our lives and our communities. They do not own Local 100. And the gravy train needs to crash. And it needs to do so real fast. And you, Local 100 members, you have a stake in this. Be there, organize, get involved, stop being on the sidelines eating popcorn. It's not a place for workers to be. It's not a respectable place for workers to be. You know where a respectable place for workers to be is? In their union, in the fight, leading struggles, battering each other's backs. That's where our respect comes from. That's where the morale will change. Nothing's going to change by anybody sitting on the couch. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon. I hope to see you out there on Wednesday.
See you there.
See ya.
See you there.